Have you ever heard of the Motherload cake from Claim Jumper? The 7-layer chocolate cake made in-house from scratch. How about the chocolate chip calzone? This is a calzone where they make the dough in-house from scratch, and they stuff it with chocolate chips, a sweet cream, and they bake it in a wood fire oven. Till this day, it's the best dessert I've ever had, and they don't make it anymore. Claim Jumper is a shell of what it used to be. Here's the sad part. Claim Jumper was once the pinnacle of what a restaurant should be. Claim Jumper saw success that most restaurants will never see in their lifetime. And this brand has fallen from grace. And you're asking why? I did some research and I'm going to tell you. Let's start from the beginning. Claim Jumper was founded in 1977 by father and son business partner Carl and Chris Nikoloff. They opened the first Claim Jumper restaurant in Southern California with 250 seats. Claim Jumper had a gold mining theme due to Carl, the dad's, obsession with old Western movies. If you've ever been to a Claim Jumper, it's actually really cool. All the booths and tables made it look like they're from tree branches, but they're actually really high quality furniture. All the walls are either made of a log cabin design, like stacked logs, or cobble. There's antiques hanging up everywhere, animal heads, deer antlers, all the type of stuff to really immerse you into this old mining themed restaurant where you feel like you're in an old Western. But it still kept its elegance because everything was high quality. There was no cheapness to it. Had to mix with this modern high-end look mixed with this old Western theme. Claim Jumper would become known for their large portions. They had ribs, chicken, steak, seafood, chicken pot pies, all kinds of fun, old-fashioned American fare that was delicious. Now, don't confuse their large portions with quantity over quality, because Claim Jumper had exceedingly high quality and expectations for their food. That was what made it so unique. Large portions with very high quality, well-made food. Instantly, Claim Jumper was a hit. And although they weren't planning on expanding originally, the Nikoloffs decided to strike while the iron was hot, and they expanded right away, keeping it in Southern California. The whole business model for Claim Jumper was they would take over big restaurant buildings that were vacant. Restaurants had to close down. They would take over the building, remodel it. Eventually, the Nikoloffs would open a grand total of 47 Claim Jumpers on the West Coast. So what made Claim Jumpers so popular? Well, for starters, Carl Nikoloff, the dad, was actually a third-generation restaurateur. His grandfather opened up Nick's in Long Beach, California in 1957. Carl got his start in the restaurants in 1963 at Nick's coffee shop washing dishes. So the real key to Claim Jumper's success was the Nikoloff's exceptionally high standard of culture. Carl and Craig Nikoloff were one of the first pioneers to implement high fine dining standards in both the front of the house, the servers and the bartenders, and the back of the house, the kitchen. They created extremely high standards for the kitchen. Everything had to be made in-house from scratch. Everything was high quality. They used very little frozen food, obviously no microwaves, and someone was there managing every step of the way. That was one of the big factors of Claim Jumper's success, was their day-to-day accountability and consistency for every aspect of the operation, from quality control to professionalism in the staff. They were managed meticulously day in and day out. This was same for the servers. The servers had to be professional, knowledgeable, and flawless. And yes, someone was managing them meticulously day in and day out. To give you an example, before each shift, each staff member had to have a white button-up Oxford shirt. That shirt had to be ironed with no wrinkles, and there had to be creases in each of the arms. They also had to do the same thing with their aprons. Ironed with no wrinkles and a crease straight down the middle. Their shoes had to be shined. They had to have a certain amount of pens. They had to have a wine opener. They had to have a lighter for birthday candles. If they didn't have any of these things done, they would be sent home. If they did it more than 3 times, they would be let go. That's how serious they took the operation. They had to be able to recite the menu. The level of professionalism that is expected behind closed doors spills out to the restaurant itself. When you're having your employees take their jobs that serious, you're going to get seriously big results. Imagine if you have that mindset where everything has to be perfect. That eliminates the laziness. That eliminates the lazy workers. When a new employee comes in, they're being trained by someone who's ironing their shirt every day, ironing their apron every day, polishing their shoes, and taking their job serious, then that person's going to take their job serious. Everyone knows what they have to do, and they do it at a high standard because everybody's doing it. Everybody's a part of it. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid. That's what good culture is. That's how you get repeat business. But there was a fall from grace. In 2005, the father, Carl, was ready to retire. His son, Chris, wanted to start his own venture, so they sold Claim Jumper in 2005 for $200 million. Unfortunately, the new owners ran the restaurant into the ground, tried to milk it for all they could. They started cutting a bunch of quality control issues. They started cutting out managers. They're trying to save money, but what they were doing was they were saving nickels and it was costing them dollars. And eventually the company went bankrupt in 2010. Carl Nikoloff, who regretted selling the company in the first place, tried to buy Claim Jumper back and he bid on it. But he got outbid by the Laundry restaurants for $76 million. This is a tragic day for Carl. He was actually very upset that he got outbid. He thought he was going to win it for sure, and he really wanted to take his restaurant back and bring it back up to the high standard that it once was. So what did Laundries do? Did they learn the lesson from the previous owners? No. They continued to cut corners. Eventually, after Laundries lost enough money, they sold Claim Jumper for $19 million in 2019. And that's where it stays with those current owners. So right now, Claim Jumper has about 15 locations, which is a far cry from the 47 they had at their pinnacle. Claim Jumper's success started with their strong foundation laid out by the owners, who instilled a culture of excellence from the very beginning. The rise and fall of Claim Jumper shows that business longevity isn't based solely off profits. It's about building and preserving a strong foundation built on and with culture and values. Culture that can withstand management changes, ownership changes, economical changes, and market dynamics. Good food and good service is necessary but not sufficient. The true secret ingredient to restaurant longevity lies in the establishment and preservation of a strong, positive culture and unwavering values. As soon as you cut those elements out, you cut out the success too. I gotta tell you, I went to Claim Jumper a lot as a kid and I miss that place. And I wish they're still around. I've been to Claim Jumper about 10 years ago and it was terrible. It was completely different. The standard, you could tell just by seeing the food and the service that the place had gone downhill big time. It was very evident. The food came out mediocre at best. The service was okay. It was fine. The place was dead, and I never went back because it wasn't the same restaurant. It was a former shell of that restaurant. The good news is the son, Craig Nikoloff, started his own chain of restaurants called Nick's. There's Nick's in Laguna Beach, Nick's on 2nd in Long Beach. There's South of Nick's in San Clemente, which is a Mexican style. And there's a South of Nick's in Laguna Beach. These are all independently owned by Craig. He will not let anybody else touch these, as they shouldn't have in the first place with Claim Jumper. Then this is a living legacy of the Nikoloffs, because these restaurants are what Claim Jumper used to be. It's basically a more modern Claim Jumper. The food's more modern, the portions are smaller, more realistic, the locations are smaller, they're more modern in design, there's no themes or elements. Still has amazing, modern, sophisticated atmosphere. The food's amazing, and of course the service is top notch. That's what Nick's is all about, is their service. You know, if you work in the restaurant industry near those locations, I worked in Laguna Beach for 8 years, so I worked next to that Nick's location, and you know how strict they are, what their standards are. First of all, it's very hard to get a job there, and second of all, when you get a job there, they take it serious. They will let people go if they're not on the top of their game, and that's not a bad thing. That's just standards. That's what it should be, honestly, and that's why when you go to Nick's, you always get great service. Everybody is on their A game. It is impressive, and it's an experience. That makes it become an experience, because when you go in there, you're going to get the best service, you're going to get the most friendly service, the most knowledgeable service, you're going to get someone that wants to be there, and the food, of course, is top-notch and phenomenal. So it's really cool to see that the Nikoloffs are still living their legacy through Nick's. Anyway, that's all I got.